welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking about one of the biggest shifts that's happening in multifamily marketing right now, which is AI search, and how it's changing the way renters discover and decide where to live. I'm Spencer Sivey, Vice President of Sales at SOCi. This conversation is especially timely because SOCi, as many know, just released our annual Local Visibility Index, LVI as we refer to it. It's a research report that looks at how particularly property management companies and other multi-location brands perform across local search, AI discovery, social media, and reviews. And we do a lot of educating around it really over the year. And this year brings the biggest shift we're seeing in how renters are finding information through AI-powered platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini, tools that return small, curated sets of answers instead of traditional search rankings, which is what we're going to dig into with some of our experts. That change actually is potential to completely reshape the renter discovery. I mean, completely reshape the renter discovery. Search is no longer just about ranking on one page, which we'll discuss. Increasingly, AI is delivering a single recommendation, which means properties are either getting chosen or getting skipped entirely. So to dig in what this really means for our multifamily marketers, those that are here, you want to learn something, of course. I'm joined today by two guests from the Dallas area who are sitting together, which is nice to see you both. CG Miller is the Director of Marketing and Training at Presidium at Residential. Has been a longtime SOCi client and a friend. And joining CG in the room is Roxie Klatt, who's the National Account Executive at SOCi. She does bring a unique perspective from her background in both property management marketing as a marketer on that side, but also obviously working for SOCi for many years. So the three of us, we're going to break down what AI search looks like today, what marketers are getting wrong, and what multifamily teams should do right now to stay ahead. So I guess we can just start with quick introductions. So maybe CG can kick us off.
Yeah, so again, I'm CG Millier, and I'm the Director of Marketing Training at Presidium. Been in the industry about 20 years now, and so my job really is to oversee a lot of our digital footprint and everything we got going on in our portfolio across the Texas, New Mexico markets.
And I'm Roxie Klatt. I am a national account executive here at SOCi. I have been in the industry for 26 years now, if I don't want to date myself. But the bulk of my career was based on the operations side, wore many different hats, along with Director of Marketing and Training for multiple different companies. So here to shed some light on all things that are changing in our digital landscape.
You guys are like the power duo, right? You work together for a long time. You know each other for a while. Similar personalities, I might add. Very fun and a lot of laughter. So this would be a lot of fun. So let me kick us off with just a question, really, and I'll aim this towards UCG and of course Roxie. Anytime you want to interject and add context, that's fine. So really, in your words, CG, what is AI search today, and how is it different from traditional search?
So the way that I like to explain it, I use a lot of analogies, so you'll get this throughout this, but I think for me, what I see about what AI search is that when you go to Google, you're just browsing. You're asking it, hey, this is what I'm looking for. But with AI search, you're actually asking it a lot more deeper of a question. So it really flips it on its head when it comes to the output that you're getting for like different apartments. So instead of just a list that you're having to curate, you're actually getting an answer at the end of all of this. So I think of it as like Google search is like looking at a wall of flyers. You're having to figure out what you want out of it. And then with AI, you can talk to it like a friend. So you might be asking that friend, where should I be living? What am I doing? And it'll actually pull lots of stuff together from reviews, listings, social content, and provide that answer to you. So it's definitely a lot more different than what we see in Google search today.
Well, and
I
just
think
sorry,
Brock,
but
please.
just to like piggyback off of that, it's so much more conversational, right? Like it is a long tail is kind of what we've been accustomed to and learning from, but it is like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. What can you provide me back? And so instead of just this very narrow search, it's much more conversational is the way I look at
Interesting. Yeah, I think you said something before, CG, prior to this call that Google helps renters browse where AI helps renters decide. I thought that was pretty poignant.
No, it really does. And I
So
like the fact that you can compare so much stuff on there too.
no doubt, absolutely. So the next question really comes from my standpoint. I feel like multifamily still sort of, I know, I guess on the back of the wave of AI. I mean, you've done really great in adopting it and, bringing it into your company into the future. So uh, I want to ask kind of what's been the most surprising or interesting thing that you can share with us that is in terms of AI search has taken a hold of multifamily, more so probably your company, because again, I think there's still a lot that are still working into it.
Yeah, I would say for me, I find it really interesting. I'm a very data-driven person, so I love looking at details, making pros and cons lists, trying to decide what the best situation is, what is the outcome. And when it comes to AI, it's really the fact that you can have such more of a detailed conversation, like Roxy was saying. I did this recently. I was looking for an apartment here in Frisco. And I remember asking it multiple times, hey, I'm looking for a pet friendly apartment. I need a 2 bedroom. I want it to be, I need to bring my cat with me. So, how much is pet rent? Having a full conversation and having it provide back a whole list of pros and cons. Like it pulled reviews, it pulled social content, it pulled everything to tell me, here are the properties I think you should look at and why. And I thought that really stood out because, we were so used to writing content and just, I need to rank for a keyword. I need it to be short and sweet. And that's really it. And now we're seeing a lot less traffic coming in from certain sources. And it's not that renters are skipping the research phase of everything, they're kind of outsourcing it. So they're kind of asking chat GPTs and the perplexities of the world, like, hey, here's what I need. Give me a short list. And so I think it's been really interesting to just kind of follow how AI responds to you and how in depth you can have that conversation and how quickly it can narrow down all your choices.
Not heard it described like that before. Outsourcing. That's
Yeah.
a really interesting way of saying it.
Yeah, it's a good side note there. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I think about like the searches that renters would do, and I know I was speaking with someone in Chicago the other day, and they were talking about. I mean, I was just in Dallas visiting, and the traffic is incredible, and I'm like, man, if I'm searching for a place in Dallas, I'm thinking about like where's the least amount of traffic to, how do I get to this particular community, et cetera, in terms of like, what am I going to rent? The same thing was in Dallas, in this particular case, or excuse me, Chicago. They're talking about the L stops. I need
Yeah.
rent a place that's close to this particular stop that takes me here, based on a job. So it's, outsourcing it's human almost, to do that research for you. So well, that's very interesting. What do you think, most people misunderstand most about AI search and property right now? I mean, there's a lot of conversations going on, as I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of people, and we see this every day. There's a lot of people who are really digging in, and some are like, yeah, I don't know. So what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding right now in AI search?
I think the biggest understanding right now is that it's just another SEO tactic that you can complete and check off your list, and you're just done. And it's really a lot more than that. I mean, when you think about it, creating content, we were doing, I call it fluffy content, just enough slogans and taglines and keywords, and didn't really have a lot of depth and stuff to it. And when you look at what AI search is doing now, it's really taking content from not only reviews, but the sentiments that are happening in the reviews, social content. It's trying to put together an entire picture of really what living there looks like. And for me, I think we look at it as, hey, we might have been writing like a children's book previously where it was very skimmable, like, I have ADHD. I want to just quick what's going on here so I can look through it with a bunch of pictures. And now I think of it at college textbook level because you really do have to get a lot more in depth across all of your listing sites, your websites, so that if they're asking that question, like you mentioned with the L train, I was searching for things here in Frisco I wanted to be by. I wanted to be by the Dallas North Tollway. I wanted to be by HEB. Those are extra details that you have to make sure that are within your reviews, your content that you're putting on your website, your listings. So there's a lot more to it. And so I think it's going to really take a look at that surface level content and just if you're not doing much to it and you're just checking a box for SEO stuff, it's really not gonna cut it anymore. So I think it's really gonna call out some stuff there.
It
Well,
sounds
it's
like almost like a lack of education versus a misunderstanding, right? I mean, I guess you could kind of say the same thing, but I mean, that makes sense. So, Rox, I mean, you deal
yeah.
with a lot of large multifamily clients. I mean, what are you seeing or hearing out there in terms of just
Yeah, it's because it's so ever changing right now. It's it's really hard to just get that perfect grasp on what is the perfect recipe. And like you said, there's so many different channels and networks that it's going to. It's doing research, it's looking at it. It is like a brochure on every hit it hits. Instead of it just being, okay, I'm just going to go to this web page and get the results, it's how is it presented across the entire universe at this point. And instead of, we used to have it easy as marketers. We used to have a brochure and we had a wonderful little book and these were your options. But now everyone is going just so many different layers that it's not a set it and forget it. It's a constant movement, it's a constant piece. So I have clients that are adapting to that and changing and making sure that their Google profiles are accurate and they are accurate to the way renters are searching today. And now we're adding in the AI piece. So now the work is tripled because it's a moving target. And if we don't keep that up to date, we're going to fall behind.
okay. So we in our world, I mean, we're thinking about visibility, we're thinking about demand generation, or I think the ownership groups think about that. Maybe not about the visibility as much. So we might have talked a little bit already, but just in terms of how AI search has changed the way you personally have handled, think about visibility, demand generation, how you're talking about it within your company, maybe to your, to owners if you have them. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think it's really taken a big mindset just shift. I think before we were looking at things and saying, okay, visibility, if we're getting clicks and we're getting impressions and page views, we're doing our job. We're good to go. Like we're doing everything that we're supposed to do. And now it's a lot more than that. You have to kind of look at it as, visibility is there, but you're not always going to be seen. So with AI search, you're getting a lot more of a short list back to renters, and it doesn't automatically equal influence. It doesn't mean that you're going to show up just because you're listed on every single website and you have all of this stuff out there. It doesn't mean just because that is out there that you're actually going to get recommended to somebody on an AI search. There's a lot more that goes into it. And I think people that especially with my side, like we are owner operated, we have a few clients, and when talking about things, we'll talk about, is my ILS listing working? What's going on here? Why aren't I seeing enough leads coming in? And it's not that the ILS isn't working anymore. It's just it has more than one job now. It's not about just what comes from the ILS maybe or your property website, but it's there to kind of feed the AI search engine all of that information. So I think we have to change how we kind of look at what those KPIs are and what we should be measuring because it's not the same anymore. We can't just say, got a lot of clicks, we're good to go, we're getting those leads in, we're going to start to see fewer leads. It's going to get to the point where it's not about just being seen across websites, it's actually being chosen. So that's a huge shift, I think, for us and just all of the discussion points that we've been having lately with our lead to lease conversions and where we're getting our traffic from.
It's just turned it upside down, right?
Yeah.
It's how do we put a dollar amount to this lead or this click or this lease because it's so convoluted now. And the more you're out there, the better approach it is, but it has to be strategic. It can't just be, let me just throw it out there and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
Now it needs to be thought through. You need to ensure that things are accurate across the board. So then when we are going into these more details in those searches, that it's coming back with how you want to represent not only your property, your management company, making sure it's representing your brand voice. There is so much that goes into that as because you're going to search a little bit different in chat gpt than I will, so
Yeah.
we got to think about the different languages that we're dealing with and how people do speak as well.
That sounds like a lot of work. I mean, is
Just a
this,
bit.
I mean, so AI, and I guess maybe I'll just do a little hint on the agentic and the agents, but you need someone to help you, obviously. So because it has gotten more complicated. Look, I mean, I think candidly, the lead to lease thing has been convoluted for a long time because that renter or the consumer is doing so many different things, different ways, different times. So
Yeah.
you think about like AI becoming like this almost like a leasing agent, that renters have to interact with first, and then what do you want them to what is that experience, what is that going to be like for them, and I think ultimately my question is, have you talked to renters lately, or does your leasing teams or your teams talk to renters, and are you like asking them how they're finding, are they using AI? I mean, have you had any interaction like that with them?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we've been kind of looking to see how we can fix our training in different ways to kind of, before it was, where did you find us? Where did you hear about us? Now it's more of like, where did you find us? But what brought you here? And I think it does let on a little bit more of an organic conversation between leasing, because if they've already done all of this research and they've already got their pros and cons list from ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those platforms, it's really you're coming in and they're a lot more educated when they're coming in for the leasing team. And I think it's about training them to kind of dig a little deeper and take those notes about what was important. Like for me, if I was searching, like I said, for I need an HEB nearby, I need the Dallas North Tollway. If the leasing team were to ask me that, I would give them those exact details. And then again, you can start to write content to fit within that on your website or other listings to help others out there that might be looking for those. And then start to put together different sentiments that are happening across the entire community. So you can really dig into those things with people.
So a more educated lead, I hate to call it that, but a more educated person, right? Renter that comes in. I mean,
Yeah.
what does that mean to the business? You think? I have my own opinion. I'm curious what you think.
So I think for us, I mean, I love the fact that we are not spending our whole tour time answering all of the questions that they already know before they even get there. And I think it gives us a lot more qualified traffic that's actually coming in the door. So it might seem like fewer leads that are coming in, but if we know that they kind of pre-qualified themselves almost, they knew what the pet policy was, they were finding out all this other information. They heard how amazing the management company was, how maintenance is taken care of. They're coming in with, it's not really the tour that's going to make or break. It's just them kind of coming to confirm the decision and really just getting down to the details. Like, do you have the apartment that I need for the move-in that I need? Is it matching what I found online? And it's really more of a confirmation versus a you're going. I felt like I got interviewed a lot of the time, in leasing before because they were, well, what's the pet policy? What's this? And, you were having to answer all of those questions. So I do think it brings a lot more organic kind of chat, and it brings it's a lot more conversational and
I
fun, I
dig
feel
that.
like.
I'm with you on that because I feel like obviously I haven't been on the operation side for quite some time, but when I look back on it, it's like I call it the real real. It's like they want the real life, the real story, the real feel, so they are coming in to solidify that. And that's where all social has gone to as well. It's like you have your website, it's beautiful, it shows all these bells and whistles, but they want to see what the vibe is, right? I think that's the right word that we're
Yeah.
using today. Who knows? But and it's just changed that is what brought them in the door, what was their and it goes back to hot buttons, right? There were those hot buttons that they searched within AI search that brought them to your property. So are you going to put more emphasis on the pet park, or are you going to put more emphasis on the walk-in closet? It just depends on how you are presenting that property and what you're appealing to, and how can we do that across all channels in all avenues. So,
Yeah, the way that you described it, in terms of coming in fully educated, load, it sounds like how I shop for my wife for Christmas. Like I go right in the store and I know I'm getting
you
out
got
of
the
there.
link.
I'm just confirming. Well, maybe that's what's next. So anyway, I always want to keep this educational because the audience that we have, obviously we believe to be marketers in property management, and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to figure this out. So you're bringing really good insight, which is amazing. So when you think about like reviews, okay, so we'll take a step back. We know how important an AI search is. Um, your listings, your search, social, and reviews, right? Those are really the key drivers. So AI is a lot harsher than Google when it comes to reviews. So how's that changed your approach and reputation? I guess, can you confirm that? Maybe talk through a little bit more about that.
No, I can definitely confirm that Google, it is AI search is definitely a lot harsher than Google is. I think historically Google has always cared about, the number of reviews that you had, your star rating. That's really it was all that it was looking at. It was very just surface level, counting on that stuff. I think where AI and where I even see reputation management going in the industry is making sure that your community is not just a four-star property. What the AI search cares about is not only that you have a great star, but is it you're dealing with issues that come up? You're able to hold yourself accountable and your team accountable. Is it how you're responding? So it's looking at so much more, and it puts a lot more weight on what the tone is and whether or not it actually aligns with what the folks and the residents are saying online. I think for us, like what's really been interesting is that I was doing some AI searches just across some of our communities, and I know that some of the reports that I would pull for sentiments, it would talk about certain people or, maintenance is great. When I went into AI search, it was naming some of our leasing agents. It was like people here are talking about how great Riley is and how, Holly, the manager here, is so amazing and the maintenance is quick. Like, never before did I care about that, like in-depth information in the reviews because I was like, well, if we're getting 5 stars and we look really good online and it's, just simple stuff, that's okay. But AI doesn't care if you just have somebody that just writes a 5-star review with no content. That's not doing much for it. It is really
And making an impact.
no.
It's all about that context, like
Yeah.
you said. It's like looking under the hood,
Yeah.
you know?
I always say it looks for like patterns within the reviews, not just the score. So it's also looking at, what is it really saying that's happening here? Is there a pattern of, bad things that happen with maintenance or anything around the community that really kind of will be a make or break, I think, in a lot of cases.
Well, and I'm curious, I have not done this yet, but this is something I'm going to go home and do. As look at that, what if you ask ChatGPT to give you the voice of customer from XYZ property? And what does that look like? And how is that going to feed back to somebody that's a potential resident?
Yeah.
You know, that's
That'd be
kind of,
cool to check out.
that's kind of where my brain's going is it's going to analyze those reviews. Before it was just like, okay, you got a 5 star or a 4 star or 3 star. Now it's analyzing all the data that's there.
All the data, and that's the key. Is I think there's so many in the industry who are just so focused on the review side, right? There's that review solicitation, they gating reviews, they're deleting them, and I think if you believe that AI search is the future, right, you've got to be really focused on obviously what you're doing in your listings, what you're doing in social, and then the reviews got to be organic and real. And I feel like you know Papa AI is going to bust you and figure it out, if you don't.
It really is. And I mean, it's, consistency is key. I think a lot of it is going to be, how many reviews has this community had lately, too? Because if everything's really stale, I don't know that it's really going to weigh that as much because those could be yesterday's problems or old news at that point. So I really am interested as I kind of continue to do my research, and I'm always doing different searches in, that little private window where I can say, okay, I'm a prospect. I'm looking for an apartment. Tell me about this one. Well, why did you pick this? And it is really cool to see how it will bullet point out, like, here's what people are saying, what the vibe is there. Like Roxie was saying, here's how
Mhm.
management responds. So a lot of that stuff too, I think it'll be interesting over time to see how our customers and our residents start to post more on the review and if they're, highlighting some more of that stuff versus just throwing up that 5 stars. So
Yeah, if you think about what if like two properties, for example, have similar pricing and amenities, how do you think AI search would become the deciding factor? How would that work?
Yeah, I think I look at it as, a community could have the same amenities, the same price, everything is there, but it's going to really come down to what are people saying that live there? One property, and it's going to tell you, hey, if you really care about maintenance and you want to make sure if you get a work order in that your work order is done in a timely manner and that you love the management team and the management team's really important, it is going to tell you that here is a pro for why you should look at this community over this community. So you could check all the boxes for amenities, location, all of these things, but it is going to give you a lot harder of a time to be seen if it doesn't find you credible, if it doesn't trust you out there. And it's like, hey, this property is the same, but there's not really any reviews about it, or there's nothing about the management team or nothing about maintenance. It is really going to be a lot harder to get seen out there and really get chosen when they're putting up against one other property that's pretty identical.
Which I think is awesome. Think about that. I mean, it's you're broadening your decision making process, without having to do much research. It's doing it for you. So that's really cool to think about.
How how do you feel that social impacts that? Because obviously we have a same property, right? Very similar with all the things. Maybe we're okay with reviews. We're all aligned on that. Where does social impact that?
Yeah, I think social for me is always kind of like the proof's in the pudding. I mean, if it's on social, people are commenting, people are engaging, there's, a lot of content that's going out there. I think it's really going to look at that in a different way. And I'm all about consistency. I'm like, if, you're talking about these are your positive things or these are your things that make your community different, if it's on reviews and social and your website, that's where it's the most important. You have to be consistent in what you're saying and what your message is. Because if AI search doesn't know who you are and it can't rely on this information, it's going to be like, well, can I really trust this community? Should I really recommend this community? Because
Mm.
over here it looks like this, or, it says, oh, I have a lot of social events, but there's nothing going on social or nothing about any of the amenities that were mentioned. I think it's going to be a lot harder to see that come across because AI search might not trust you as much without
Yeah,
that
they
social proof.
social gets devalued a lot these days because I think it's hard. So then they just bail out of it. And I think
Yeah.
they need to go the opposite direction because social brings let's just I guess use the vibe word again, right? Brings some of these really distinct cities. I mean, the neighborhoods are very specific, to different kinds of cultures and people, and that's very important in that search. So, okay, what else do I want to talk about? So, in terms of like, as we're kind of coming to time here, I think, but as we think about like where we're at today, and then this thing has moved so fast, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
last 12 months, and that's awesome. And
You
we,
mean from yesterday to today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So like, what do you think it's going to look like in like 12 to 24 months for you and for just the industry, quite honestly?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a big shift. And I think AI search is going to be the first place that a lot of people go because, there's so much competition out there. I remember when I was a property manager on site almost, 20 years ago, it was, I drove around the block, there might be five communities. Now there's so many more. And so I think that they're going to start searching in AI search first. They're going to get educated. They're going to kind of look through everything and just, kind of make that short list. And then from there, I think they're going to go to ILS listings or websites or social or other things to just kind of use it as a confirmation almost of like, hey, this is what AI search told me, but I'm just using this as a confirmation. So a lot of it'll be kind of that zero click. I know everybody is saying that these days, zero click and, this is how we're getting things. And I really think it's true because I, really foresee that list getting shorter and shorter. And if you're not even on it, when they go to start to tour communities, it's going to really kind of die down your traffic. And again, you're already going to not see as much traffic as before because they are qualifying themselves, they are digging in a little deeper. And again, you might not even be on the list by the time you get there. So it is kind of like your first leasing, it's like your leasing agent at first, like you were saying earlier.
That first impression,
Yeah,
right, is an AI impression. Is what
exactly.
can they find about you? What can they unfold?
Yeah, and
This, well, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no,
Sorry.
you're good. I was just going to say, I think a lot of it too will be, because people are using a search, I think, conversations will be had with like, I don't need these ILS listings now, or I don't need a property website that does all these bells and whistles or all these things. And I think I'm going to say, nope, that's not true. I think, again, the more content that you have out there, the better. And, they are going to be looking at different places just to confirm that information. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation in the next 12 to 24 months as people start to kind of figure out where people are coming from and if they even search some of that information before coming to tour, or they just relied on AI search to come in the door.
I'm curious about this about AI search when it comes to like the validity of a web page. Is it the higher responses or the higher views are going to weigh heavier in that search? That's where I feel like this could possibly be going in 12 to 24 months is okay, how many eyeballs do you have on this page and is it going to outweigh one that only has 100 people that look at it?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's very interesting to see
Yeah,
what's to
websites
come.
I think are critical because you think about how long they stay on a website, and we hear that sometimes from operators, like their websites, people don't stay, they don't stick, and it's like, something's wrong with your website, so
Little cringe.
yeah, I think that's a really good point, Rocky. So I think as we gonna wrap this thing up, I again, knowing the type of audience that will be here, there's gonna be people who are like dipping their toe in this or uncertain about how to do it, or maybe scared. I mean, we have conversations that somewhat regularly with people and trying to coach them into how we can help there. But what would you say to them? Like it's the marketer who's like, I'm totally uncertain. She seems super confident. What do you want to tell them?
So I will say right away, AI, like everybody said earlier, AI is changing all the time and so fast. So don't be quick to just chase whatever the new trend is in AI. If something new comes up, don't chase it along. I think really look at simplifying and clarifying your message across all your platforms. Again, it's not about the fact that, hey, I beat somebody else, a competitor, to this trend, and I did this video first, or I put this content out there. I really think a lot of teams should look at, how can I simplify this? How can I make sure that the chat GPTs, and I call him Chad all the time, his name is Chad around me, but is Chad going to tell me that this community has exactly what I need? And I've been through, revamping amenity list. There were so many websites that I was like, oh, we didn't even mention the dog wash, or we forgot to mention this because it might have been in a picture or something else. But you want to make sure to kind of audit that stuff. And then it also starts with reviews. I think a lot of people are managing the reviews and they're kind of, I used to say, well, we want to respond to them and we want to respond quickly, but I also think that now it's going to be more important than ever that you're addressing those patterns quickly that you're seeing. So if you're seeing that people are talking about maintenance, you're addressing that in the responses because AI is going to pick up on that. So I think it has changed the tone of how we're responding and what those responses look like. And then I think consistency, I think teams will need to help a lot more with social, making sure that they're consistent about posting, that the right message is out there, and that, again, you're just kind of not letting it just go. And you're like, oh, it's okay. I'll post, next week or something like that. And oh, I forgot about this. I think you do have to really be consistent with it. And I think AI really rewards, clarity and I think honesty and again, consistency. So as long as you're kind of hitting those big buckets, I think it will really be in your best interest to kind of start there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of the business action items that come out of reviews. And that's a song we sung for a long time is,
Yeah.
it's not just a response and getting stars. I mean, this is a signal to your business. You got to go in and make some changes perhaps, and then use social media to showcase how you're doing it. You're making changes to your amenities. I mean, have social posts that show you, hey, we've heard you. We're working with you. We're going to do it for you. So
Exactly.
well, listen, I really appreciate you both taking the time. I think it was a great conversation as usual, and feel like we could probably keep talking for another hour. But
I know we need happy hour
podcast
now.
world, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. We're gonna shorten it up a little bit. So, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you guys both a very good weekend.
Thanks,
You
you
as
too.
well.